Good morning. Welcome to the February 9th, 2023 meeting of the Washington State Gambling Commission. We are in person and virtual at the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board, starting the meeting at 9:30 a.m. Today's meeting will be recorded. I'm going to ask Director Griffin to call the roll.
Morning, Chair. Morning, Chair. So I see Vice Chair Patterson and Commissioner Sizemore and Commissioner Lawson. Good morning.
Good morning.
Representative Kloba. Representative Rude. Senator Conway. Senator Holy. You do have a quorum of 4.
All right, thank you. If you have any questions regarding the meeting, please contact Julie Anderson at julie.anderson@wsgc.law.gov. The telephone lines are muted. When I ask for public comment, please unmute your line, provide your comment, and then remute your phone. Please do not interrupt other individuals who are speaking. Everyone will have the opportunity to comment. And when you provide your comment, please clearly state your name, your contact information, if you'd like to receive a summary of all comments, and who you are representing. And now we will get started with the consent agenda. We have the January meeting minutes, new licensees, sports wagering reports, and nonprofit officers. Do we have any questions or comments, changes to the minutes? Any commissioners? Okay, any public comments? Nothing? All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
And I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. The motion has passed. Now we will go to the director's report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Commissioners. So in your packet, it just reports that we have now 14 operating sports wagering operations in tribal facilities throughout the state. And then not in your director's report, as we get closer to May, that is when we were going to celebrate our 50th year as an agency. And we have May 11th and 12th as our commission meeting dates. We could narrow down a particular date and time for that particular celebration portion. That would be very helpful for our staff as we prepare for that event. So if you maybe want, so we were going to invite former commissioners, former ex officios, staff, and this would just help us with the invitations. We were thinking something along the lines of a reception, sort of, or open house sort of activity, maybe with just a few minutes of PowerPoint and some conversation, maybe 2 hours. If you want to set aside Thursday afternoon, 3 to 5, 1 to 3, that would be helpful for invitations.
Okay, so we'll have the commission meeting and then do that Thursday afternoon and then have another.
Or
meeting
Friday, whatever works for the commissioners.
My calendar's open, so I'll defer to the rest of you. Open Thursday and Friday. And I think that what's been outlined is a good plan. A reception for a couple hours, and that sounds nice.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lawson?
I can do either day at those times.
Okay, I think I would prefer Thursday just because I have to catch a flight Friday and it would probably be easier to do Thursday afternoon and then have the meeting again Friday? That works for everyone.
Yeah, so maybe we're at a consensus. I don't know. I think that it's certainly pretty noteworthy, 50 years as an agency. That's pretty crazy. I look forward to the opportunity to maybe meet some of our predecessors, that were long gone before we got here. Hopefully we'll be able to get some folks to come back and regale in the old stories, I suppose. So, yeah, I would certainly be a proponent of, trying to work till about 3, get as much work as we can done till about 3 that day. Go ahead and have an official ceremony and a celebration. And then if folks want to unofficially continue to celebrate, they're off the clock. That's my thoughts.
All right, do we need to vote on this?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think I have, thank you, the 11th in the afternoon. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right.
And that is all I have for you today.
All right, thank you very much, Director Griffin. Next up is a petition for discussion only, wagering limits for house bank card rooms. Jess Luce, Special Agent. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Commissioners ex officios, for the record, my name is Jess Losi. I'm a special agent in our regulation unit. Turn to tab 2 in your commission meeting packet. We're here today for discussion only on a petition to raise wagering limits for house bank card games. If you recall, at the January 2023 commission meeting, staff brought forward 4 possible rules with draft language. They were labeled A, B, C, and D. The commissioners voted to file draft language for option B, which was to increase the maximum wagering limits from 300 to 500 for a single wager. Since that commission meeting, we have received some feedback. On January 27th, 2023, received an email from Mr. Jerry Howe, owner of Wild Goose Casino in Ellensburg, in support of the petition. You'll notice that this commission meeting packet in tab 2 is rather large. Over the last couple commission meetings in August and January, the commissioners had several questions related to this petition. And what staff has done is we went through and pulled the transcripts of both the August 2022 commission meeting and January 2023 commission meeting and attempted to flag some of the questions the commissioners have brought up. And then staff went and attempted to answer a lot of those questions. So you'll see a number of different attachments related to this petition. If you were to, staff recommends filing this for further discussion. The earliest you could take final action on this would be at the March 2023 commission meeting. And I will stand by if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. And I just want to thank the staff for putting that together and getting the transcripts together. I thought that was all very, very helpful.
It's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions or comments from the commissioners? Any other discussion on this? Yes, Director Griffin.
I'd just like to supplement a little bit more with some information and some questions, answering some questions that have been outstanding or have come about as part of the discussion. So you did have in your packet are the questions from the August 2022 commission meeting. Those, hopefully you can see where we pulled those and how we pulled those from the transcript from that meeting. Just want to check in and see if there are any further questions that we did not capture for information or for staff's research on that. If there is anything outstanding.
Yes, I have one. So, and maybe I missed it. So let me find it so that I'm speaking appropriately. No. So one of my dilemmas in contemplating this is the food and beverage, kind of how we view that. The conflicts between primarily engaged in selling of food or drink for consumption on premises versus it being removed from the statute in other places, and our rules that still hold that and the statute that removed primarily still or tells the commission to do rules, or that has the authority to do rules related to that. So, I mean, currently, I don't think we're out of sync necessarily. Just looking at the 300 that was established, that seemed to be okay at the time. And now trying to figure out if we increase it, whether we're still okay within kind of those parameters. So I'm curious, I guess, whether we need to have some deliberations about, let me go get the right one. WAC 230-03-175. I mean, do we need to answer what that means?
I'm sorry, would you clarify that, Bud?
Sure.
Just that last point you made.
Do we need to wrap in contemplating changes to 230-03-175 if we were to raise wager limits? Because it feels to me a little bit like, and I don't know whether it even creates a rule change necessarily, but a robust discussion about how that works, what that means in relation to a $400 wager or a $500 wager. So yeah, I mean, I'm still just struggling with that. My goal is to traverse this without the legislature feeling they have to try to preempt what we've done, and as happened in the past, certainly related to electronic raffles. I didn't like it then. I don't think I would like it now. So I want to make sure that we're staying in that lane. So, and I think if we have kind of a robust discussion about all of that, and maybe, I don't know how far we can get there today, but certainly have that robust discussion of how all those things interplay. And then I think we can, have a lot more confidence that what we're doing is going to get the thumbs up from the legislature. And, not that they would only intervene if they feel like they have to intervene, so it's, yeah. I'm looking at you because you do have some time in those seats as well. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. And I'm sympathetic to the petitioner's desire to go ahead and let's get this taken care of. But it's a change that will last a long time. So I want to make sure that we do it right.
Go ahead, Commissioner
I
Fierce.
agree with Bud, and I do have one quick question. When we set the limit at $300, did we have a similar discussion to what's going on today? Does anyone remember or know?
I do not know, so I will put that on the question list and we will bring the materials we'll put the materials in your packet for next meeting.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I think that Commissioner Sizemore is right, that we should have a broad conversation so that we fully understand before proceeding.
Okay. Commissioner Lawson, do you?
Yeah, no, I agree. We need to have more discussion because we want to make sure that we're making the right move and are addressing all the issues at once instead of creating more problems for other commissions down the road. There's 2 points that I see here. One is that I need a little bit more information, and I'm hoping staff can help us out here. I'd like to see the number of house bank card rooms in Washington State over time. So from 1997 to present, just the straight number that we've had. And then, and I think Vice Chair Patterson point, I think that we need to look at adding some language regarding problem gambling to the rule. And I know that that was offered in options A and D when we considered this last month, and that maybe we need to look at some of that language and examine the possibility of adding some of that language in as we're looking at further revisions or further drafts of this revision.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was
That's
looking
all
at
right.
options.
What do you?
Just to see what the options were surrounding
Right.
problem gambling. I couldn't scroll fast enough. Okay, so I guess we have a couple more questions that the staff can answer, and that might help further the discussion, but is there anything more specific that anyone's looking for to try to get this discussion moving and going, other than that you can think of?
So I guess I have one, and I guess I'll ask Commissioner Lawson, well, I'll ask all my fellow commissioners. One thing, when I read option A, option D, and what those languages to the rules were, it made me feel like we were gonna be scrutinizing just the 500 limit table, only if they went to 500. And I want to make sure that problem gambling could be problematic on a $2 table versus a 300. So I don't want to, it just felt a little wonky language wise because I think I think the proprietors and the agency and our, partners in problem gambling already care about problem gambling. So I'm interested in, making sure that problem gambling is addressed. But I don't want our rule, whatever language, would be considered to diminish other places that we're doing problem gambling awareness or tactics to diminish it. So, I don't know how you thread that needle, but.
So just for clarity, are you asking that staff bring back some various forms of problem gambling language?
Just for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any commissioners have anything else?
Maybe after public comment, Bonnie.
So I do have, sorry, go ahead and ask. I'll wait.
No, you can go ahead. You're next.
So I did have a few other questions in regards to the 8 that were in the packet. There were a few that staff has not completed. And so interested to know if that is still something that you're interested in us answering and collecting the information on, and verifying the scope then as well. So there is one, understanding tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supplier impacts. What is the ripple impact tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers look like? And what does the ripple into the communities really mean when we use that language? That was the question we pulled from the transcript. So if that is the scope of which you are still interested in, that is helpful. If you could help narrow the scope a tad bit, because this is something that we will have to seek a request for bid and proposal on because we do not have an economist on staff. And so this will take a bit of time, and I need some more clarity so that I can make sure that we are getting a bid and then developing the scope of work through that contract appropriately. It's question number 6 in the packet.
I don't know that I'm necessarily interested in that question, but someone else might be.
Not compelling.
Right.
And I don't necessarily need that information either.
Yeah, and I went to the transcribe, to the, whatever, the writing of the meeting. And yeah, as I read through that, why can't I think of that word? Transcription? Maybe that's it. And
The writing of the meeting works.
I thought that was pretty good. Pulled that out. And I mean, I think it's really maybe a much more complex, understanding of the entire supply chain that probably won't be very beneficial to our discussion. So, I mean, costs in, costs out. And ultimately, I'm much more interested in trying to pin down the correlation between the gaming and the food and beverage versus how the whole supply chain works for the food and beverage.
Okay, thank you. So staff will not be providing any additional information on number 6. It's in the packet. Then number 7, pulled from the transcript, quoted, I would love for staff as we go through the rulemaking process to identify those establishments that really market themselves as card rooms first versus establishments that market themselves as bars. So staff has not yet compiled the social media, print, and commercial marketing materials for the 38 operating house bank card rooms. Just want to, again, make sure that I understand the scope of the materials that you would like us to pull together. If you could just verify or give us a direction. For us, we thought it might be social media, print, and commercial marketing materials.
That is also something that I don't know that we need answered. I don't know how they market themselves really changed the discussion much personally. I think the point initially was the commercial stimulant thing, but I don't know that that helps too much. I mean, that's kind of more the law rather than looking at how the marketing is happening.
I agree.
Okay.
Commissioner Lawson?
I agree.
Thank you. Staff will not proceed any further with number 7 then either. Thank you, that's helpful. And then we will tack on drafting additional language for your consideration regarding problem gambling. We will collect and compile the number of house bank card rooms from 1997 to present, and include the rules summary information that was presented for final action when making the change to $300 wager limits currently then. Thank you. And then did you want to have discussion today about the laws and the rules related to your statutory authority for setting wager limits and commercial stimulant? Or is this something you're looking for discussion in the future?
I'd like to hear from if there's any public comment.
Yes.
Really, before we,
I mean, what's the benefit of
if there is. Yeah.
putting it off?
There isn't one.
There's no benefit in putting the discussion off, is there?
Right, so maybe we can hear from public comment and see how if that triggers anything or whatnot, and then we can discuss further. So that being said, is there any public comment on the matter?
Specifically, what is the question to the public on this?
Well, it's not necessarily a question, I guess, just public comment in general on raising the limits. And then if you have anything that you might add, I think the questions people have are surrounding the language of commercial stimulant and the RCW and the WAC, but I'm not directing you to, analyze the law
That's what I was
necessarily,
curious
just if you
about.
have an opinion or something.
Yeah, I can make some comment.
Okay, please, you can come up to the.
All right, good morning. Chair, Commissioners, ex officio, staff. My name is Victor Mena. I'm the president of Last Frontier and New Phoenix in La Center, Washington. I've been in the industry for quite a bit of time. I started in 2001, and I've gotten back into the industry just recently. I'd like to speak to the rule as far as being in favor of seeing it passed. Obviously, I was one of the people that dropped this rule back in 2016. At that time, the reason for trying to pass it then was foreseeing the expenses that were coming down the pipe with legislation through minimum wage, ACA, and other regulatory conversions in the state. My purpose at that moment was to be in front of it, to be preemptive, because in 2016, we roughly had somewhere between 50 and 60 card rooms. And that was down from a high of 102 roughly in 2005. And what we were seeing is a trend where the card room industry was starting to deteriorate. And I think I even put it on the record on several meetings that I projected that by the time minimum wage took absolute hold and passed all the way through, that we would be down to somewhere between 30 and 35 card rooms. We're currently at 38. So we're not far from that number. We just saw a 9.1% increase in minimum wage roughly in the state of Washington. And that is a prelude only to the next increase coming in September after CPI gets looked at. And the CPI number then is probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.5%, if we're lucky, as trends are going. So with that, I can tell you right now that the average card room in the state is probably experiencing a range of anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 of excess payroll just with this current increase. So we're speaking to 10,000 to 30 grand per month as an increase. So it is a situation where you're going to see an erosion of the industry as it moves forward. This commission is also going to be staring at the fact that their revenues are in jeopardy and needing to be adjusted. As a matter of fact, I believe you guys are speaking on raising the cap on these businesses. So it's the same problem that we're all experiencing. We're all in the same boat. We're seeing the impact of getting people to a livable wage. So with that, I definitely am in support of seeing it go to 300 to 500. It's been 2008 when it was discussed to go to 300. It was passed in 2009. In 2009, I think the minimum wage was somewhere around $9 an hour. You have some jurisdictions in the state where it's over $19 an hour. So it's just a byproduct of economics as to why the industry is asking for this.
Question, Madam Chair. Just curious, other than this rule change request, what else has the industry done to deal with higher prices with the minimum wage?
We've had to raise food prices. We've had to raise beverage prices. It's absolutely a certainty that in the last 3 years, we've probably seen a 30% increase in food and beverage prices. And we've had to make those increases. I could tell you that it is extremely painful to see our food costs as an industry. It's somewhere between 40%, and in some places it's probably closer to 60%, depending on the operators. So it is absolutely a burden that we've been trying to adjust.
Any other questions? Mr. Lawson? All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there any additional public comment? Nothing online? Yep.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Barry Murray, representing Imperial Palace. And I just wanted to echo Victor's statements and also speak in favor of the raising of the limit. I mean, we're experiencing the food costs that he just outlined firsthand. I mean, it used to be you could hit 35% or thereabouts, and now you're 45. And that's if you're kind of keeping your prices at a reasonable level. Everything's up. Beverage cost is up, beer cost is up, liquor cost is up. And the minimum wage is mind-boggling, to be quite honest, from an expense standpoint, as we continue. So I'm certainly in favor of whatever we can do to try to mitigate some of that, and certainly the wage limits, I think, could be a factor, whether it's to 500 or to 500 in addition to potentially 1,000 as well on for the 3 tables as outlined in one of the options. But I just wanted to express my support for it, and we as a company, and appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you very much. Any additional public comments? Julie? Nothing. Anyone else in here? Okay, commissioners have any further? So I guess that was discussion only, so I think. Dr. Griffin, did you have something?
So did you want to have further conversation then about the RCWs and the WACs then?
Yes.
And would you like to do that? Would you like staff to walk through that a little bit today?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, RCW 946-010 sets out, excuse me, the declaration, legislative declaration. Don't know that it has any, excuse me, I don't know that I want to talk about that. Commercial stimulant is defined in 946-0217, means any activity as operated as a commercial stimulant for the purposes of this chapter, only when it is an activity operated in connection with the established business or with an established business, with the purpose of increasing the volume of sales of food or drink for consumption on the business premises. The commission may, by rule, establish guidelines and criteria for applying this definition to its applicants and licensees for gambling activities authorized in this chapter as commercial stimulants. RCW 946-070 sub 2 authorizes the commission to issue licenses for a period not to exceed 1 year to any person, association, or organization operating a business primarily engaged in the selling of food, in the selling of items of food or drink for consumption on the premises approved by the commission, meeting the requirements of this chapter, and any rules and regulations adopted pursuant thereto, permitting said person, association, or organizations to utilize punch boards, pull tabs, and to conduct social card games as a commercial stimulant in accordance with the provisions of this chapter, any rules and regulations adopted pursuant thereto, and to revoke and suspend said licenses for violations in the provisions of this chapter and any rules and regulations pursuant thereto. So focusing on the commercial stimulant aspect first, and then we can talk about your authority to set wagers second. From there, you go into WAC 230-03175. So both the definition of commercial stimulant in the RCW and in the powers and duties statute 946-070 sub 2 talk both about established businesses and the definition of primarily engaged in the selling of food or drink for consumption on premises. So WAC 230.03.175 was approved by the commissioners, was filed in March 22nd of 2006. It went into effect on January 1st, 2008. It has, there was another change to it on October 22nd of 2007. Again, it went into effect on January 1st of 2008. There have been no changes to this rule since 2007. So it says that businesses must provide evidence for us to determine their qualifications as a commercial stimulant as required by RCW 460217, which is the definition of commercial stimulant. That evidence includes, but is not limited to, number one, proof of an established business as used in 9460217. Established business means any business that has been open to the public for sales of food or drink for on-premises eating and drinking for 90 days or more, or passes an inspection by us, is ready to conduct food or drink sales, and gives us a proposed operating plan, which includes hours of operation, estimated gross sales from each separate activity the business will conduct on the business premises, including but not limited to gross sales from food or drink sold for on-premises eating or drinking, and gross sales from food or drink sold to go, and gross sales from all other business activities. So that is how the commissioners have chosen by rule to define established business. And it all links back to the definition of commercial stimulant. And then sub 2 goes on to state and addresses the primarily engaged in section. So 2 says that proof that it is primarily engaged in the selling of food or drink for consumption on premises as used in 946 in quotes, the phrase primarily engaged in the selling of food or drink for consumption on premises, in quotes, means that before receiving a gambling license, the business has total gross sales of food or drink for on-premise consumption or receiving a gambling license. The business has total gross sales of food or drink for on-premise consumption equal to or greater than the combined sales of all other activities which occur on the business premises. So that is how, again, the commissioners in 2007, by rulemaking, chose to define the quoted phrase from 946.070 sub 2.
Let me get clarification. So does that, I don't have that in front of me.
So this part primarily engaged in.
Where's the language about prior?
It means that before receiving a gambling license, the business has a total gross sale of food or drink.
So did the commission at the time talk about what happens after they receive a gambling license? It was just relating to before they receive a gambling license that they have to. Yeah,
That's all I found is before. I don't know.
okay.
And I should state too, for people, for those tuning in or participating in the meeting, these are in reference to questions 3 and 8, and they would be the attachments A through J.
So just questions, and I apologize, I know that you're way ahead of me on this, probably, Madam Chair. So the Gambling Commission, with regard to this question, appears to have been operating under the premise that the word primarily, as it relates to food and beverage, is prior to these organizations receiving a gambling license.
So just looking at the WAC, it is in quotes, the phrase primarily engaged in the selling of food or drink for consumption on premises. And it states proof of that as used in 946-070 means that before receiving a gambling license, the business has total gross sales or drink, etc. That phrase that is used in 946-070 sub 2.
I'm trying to understand. Okay,
Okay.
well, no, it's not, I mean, it's complicated. Well, it's just complicated. I mean, the commission, that's pretty clear
Yeah.
what the commission came up with. What year was that again?
2009.
7.
It was filed in 2007 and it went into effect on 1/1/2008.
And when were the limits for card rooms established at $300? Was it after, it was after that time?
I believe it was before that time.
Early 2009, the current limitations of $300 were placed in 2009.
Oh, after, thank you.
And did we challenge that $300 limit based on this? Was that challenged in this? I mean, was that discussed or was that concern raised? Do you know if the Gambling Commission at that time raised concerns about the word primarily prior to increasing the limit to $300 at that time? Do you know?
I do not know, Vice Chair, that would be why I'm gonna need to bring the rule summary for final action for that $300 that you'd asked for. So that'll have to be included in your next packet,
Thank you.
So, not sure that this can be answered today, but certainly, or if it's necessary to be answered today, but more somewhat of a legal question. I mean, this plain reading seems like there's this threshold at the beginning of operation, and then maybe it's kind of silent about a test as ongoing. But, and so I guess what I'm kind of curious about is whether, and this could just be how law works, but does and I'll use Victor, does Frontier have a gambling license that was issued whenever they started or under the new ownership, that license? And so that license, as long as it's renewed, is that a license, or is there a 2019 license? Is there a 2020 license? Is there a 2021 license? So at renewal, and I mean, doesn't seem like we have been doing this, but at renewal, are we supposed to apply this test? So that's, I mean, I'm asking it for, for us to have that to contemplate down the road. And I'm gonna bet that it's probably either unsettled law or there probably are conflicting, kind of outcomes on that. So, but that's where I'm, another thing I just would like to have some clarity. And if it's just unclear and it can mean both, I would like to know that as well, I guess. So.
Commissioner Lawson, do you have any comments?
So yeah, I had the same question along the same lines as Commissioner Sizemore is, is this a one-time showing that they are primarily engaged, or do they have to sort of annually recertify that they are primarily engaged in the business of food and drink? And then the other question that I have, don't think that I saw it in the materials. Do we have any of the records from the rulemaking of WAC 230.03175 regarding the discussion or the public comment that was received at the time that rulemaking was done? Again, I didn't see it in the materials, so I don't know if I'm just missing it or if that can be provided to us for the next meeting.
So you're seeking the public comment received and or made in the development of Rule 230.03175.
Or the discussion that was held at the Gambling Commission meeting amongst the commissioners and other people there about that rulemaking. Sort of like how we have the transcript from our August meeting when we first discussed this petition.
Okay.
Can I make some comment on this?
Yeah, please do.
Victor Mena, again, commenting on this discussion. It is a confusing WAC and it is a confusing RCW as far as the intent, but I believe what it is trying to say is by primarily meaning that food and beverage is the primary source of the business that is being licensed. In other words, it's not going to be selling cannabis. It's not going to be selling tobacco. It's not going to be selling clothing. It is a food and beverage primary business, meaning that food and beverage sales are its main driving force before the gambling license checks in. Now, that's my interpretation of that. I'm sure that we can have the AG weigh in, but that is the intent of what that WAC is. Now, as far as when that was rewritten, that's coming real close to rule simplification. And some of that rule simplification, I'm not sure if all of it went through public comment. Tina, did it?
But it would have had to.
It would have had to.
It should have.
It should have been at least the mentioning or the rewrite, right? But it's very possible that the whole packet got re-simplified as language. And you, as commissioners, went through every single WAC, okay? Just in case, you're finding difficulty in finding it, okay?
Thank you very much, Victor. Is there any other comments from anyone? I personally feel pretty comfortable that it means before the license was ever issued, and that's kind of the end of it, but I'll be interested to hear what we hear from others, from some of the questions that were asked. Director Griffin?
So unless there's no further discussion on that, we can go through the RCW and I believe there's just RCW citations regarding your ability to set wager limits. Also in your packet of materials, again, in response to questions 3 and 8, with attachments for that response, A through H. So the definition of social card game, 9460282, towards the end states that the card game must be played in accordance with the rules adopted by the commission under 946-070, which shall include but not be limited to rules for the collection of fees, limitations of wagers, and management of player funds. The number of tables, though, is authorized, and the number of tables is authorized. Number of tables authorized shall be set by the commission and shall not exceed 15. So when you go then to 946-070, subsection 11, this is where the legislature has outlined your powers and duties. Number 11 states that the commission shall have the following powers and duties: to regulate and establish the type and scope of and manner of conducting the gambling activities authorized by this chapter, including but not limited to the extent of wager, money, or other thing of value which may be wagered or contributed or won by a player in any such activities. So those are the RCWs that grant you the power and duties to initiate rulemaking. Well, actually, to regulate and establish the wagering amounts.
What RCW was that again?
946-070, subsection 11. But it's also in the definition of social card game, 946-0282.
Thank you.
There aren't, and then we also, then obviously we have various rules that outline the wager limits throughout WAC 230.
Questions?
Pretty clear.
Good right now. Info will.
All right, Commissioner Lawson,
I don't have any questions.
okay. Is there more information that giving us Director Griffin right now, or?
Imagine that.
I know, too many papers. I believe that is all at this. So we will bring this back. Oh, you're there. So the earliest you could proceed forward with final action would be at the March meeting. We intend to bring this up for discussion only, and maybe we just put this on the agenda for possible action moving forward. And then at that time, should you choose to take final action, you can. We will have the additional language for these other requests that we'll also put a copy of the 101 filing, because we'll have to take a look at that depending on if you do decide to add language to this rule for any topic. It may be outside of the scope of the 101 filing. And so we may have to either initiate a separate rulemaking, or potentially go back and would you refile the 101?
I would likely just refile the 101 or file a supplemental 101. And there's a few ways we can do this.
Okay.
Okay. But yes, filing an additional 101.
So we'll just put it on the agenda moving forward as possible action and discussion and possible action. In that way, you have the flexibility moving forward in deciding how you'd like to proceed. And we have not done stakeholdering yet, which will occur on Monday, and then possibly again on February 27th. And with that, that is all I have for you. Thank you.
All right. So I think that's it on that. We'll wait to get some of the questions answered and then come back to this in March unless anyone thought of some last minute.
Well, I guess I have one more comment, or maybe I shouldn't limit myself. I'll
We're limited
comment.
now.
I have a comment. Yeah, I mean, depending on kind of some of the answers around 230-03-175 and what a license means, I'm afraid that if, depending on how that all comes back, we may have to, or we may need to initiate some rulemaking on that. I mean, just figure out what our role is in that. But if in fact it means, the way it's written, if in fact it means that we just do this test at the onset, I mean, I think that creates some policy questions that we may or may not need to address. Because ultimately it looks like you could have a robust restaurant bar, introduce gaming, and then essentially shut down the bar or restaurant if you wanted, because this only has us apply the test at the onset. So, which I don't think is what is intended, but if it's questionable, then we probably ought to try to answer it. So, and if we decide we want to go forward with higher wager limits, we might need to change this to take away kind of the question down the road of whether that wager limit, or future commissions, how much they should care about this as they're debating wager limits in the future. Just some thoughts.
Okay,
It's just,
There is a whack that stipulates that we must be.
So keep in mind, if there's public comment, we need to have it recorded, please. Thank you.
not
Chair,
recognized.
are you still taking public comment?
I think we'll just let the staff get back to us with the answers. I think at this time, I'm sure that will come up.
And a reminder that public comment can always be submitted through
Via
email, our website, because rulemaking continues to be open on this topic. Thank you.
Yes, please feel free to send an email. Okay, so now I think we will move on to tab 3, then, which is the petition and discussion for amusement games. That is Lisa McLean, Legislative and Policy Manager. Morning, Lisa.
Morning, Chair. Don. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, staff, guests. For the record, my name is Lisa McLean, Legislative and Policy Manager. In tab 3, there was a petition to amend WAC 230-1380 related to operating coin and token amusement games. We received the petition in April 2020 from Steve Manning of Tacoma, Washington. He asked to amend the WAC that defined a department or grocery store as a venue with 10,000 or more square feet of retail or support space. The need for the change arose from the challenges that COVID was placing on non-essential businesses. The petitioner believed that the change would allow amusement game operators the ability to expand the number of locations where amusement games could be placed. At the May 2020 commission meeting, commissioners initiated rulemaking. On April 2022, the petitioner submitted a request to withdraw the petition. And on May 9th, 2022, the staff withdrew rulemaking with the code revisor. So today, staff seeks commissioners' concurrence in withdrawing the rulemaking as requested by the petitioner. Alternatively, commissioners could direct staff to reinitiate rulemaking.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions, from the commissioners?
It just seems like a housekeeping matter to me, Madam Chair.
Yes, I believe that's my understanding. All right. Any public comment? Julie, nothing. All right, then do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to withdraw the notice of rulemaking as requested by the petitioner.
Thank you.
I can second that.
Right, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Nope. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Next up is petition for discussion and possible action on centralized surveillance with Lisa.
Good morning again. For the record, my name is Lisa McLean, Legislative and Policy Manager. If you turn to tab 4, there's a petition from Tim Merrill of Maverick Gaming of Kirkland, Washington. In November 2021, the petitioner submitted a petition to amend the existing rules to allow for the ability to monitor card room gambling activity from a centralized surveillance room rather than having to monitor on the premises. The petitioner felt that the change was needed to enable staff to be together in a central location where they could be observed by experienced surveillance management that could provide consistent training. A centralized location would be an opportunity to promote consistency and allow instant communication to gaming agents, as well as quick and effective response to equipment malfunctions. The petitioner noted that the change would allow for an efficient surveillance room operation in these times when it is difficult to find employees and qualified people are needed to protect the casino's assets, customers, employees, and to maintain compliance. Currently, the rules require that Class F and House Bank card room licensees maintain analog or digital closed circuit television systems within their licensed premises that is monitored by the licensee's cardroom employees. At the January 2022 commission meeting, commissioners chose to initiate rulemaking that would address a number of policy concerns raised by the staff, and they're listed on page 2 of the rule summary. The purpose of surveillance systems is to safeguard the licensee's assets, protect the public, and ensure that licensed gambling activities are conducted honestly and free of criminal elements of activities. The petitioner noted that they have received special permission in Colorado and Nevada to operate a centralized surveillance room. Staff has confirmed that Nevada and Colorado have approved variances authorizing centralized surveillance rooms for Maverick. The Nevada Gaming Commission and Nevada Gaming Control Board's Regulation 5.160 related to surveillance systems allows licensees to seek revisions and exemptions to the casino surveillance standards. The letter requesting approval for centralized surveillance in Nevada is included as part of the tab 4. The Colorado Division of Gaming's internal control minimum procedures, section 13, again related to surveillance system standards, requires each casino to have an in-house surveillance room, except for commonly owned casinos within the same county. They also authorize licensees to seek variances related to surveillance, and Colorado's variance request forms are included in your tab 4. Centralized surveillance is not authorized by most states, such as New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Indiana, Illinois, Louisiana, Iowa, and Mississippi. Iowa allows surveillance rooms to be on a property adjacent to the casino, and Mississippi allows satellite monitoring stations as approved by the director of the Gaming Commission. On January 27th, we received an email from Jerry Howe, owner of Wildgood Casino in Ellensburg, in support of this petition. The email is in your packet, and staff recommends withdrawing rulemaking due to the list of policy concerns. An alternative would be for commissioners to direct staff to proceed with rulemaking that addresses the policy concerns raised.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions, comments from the commissioners?
I have a question for our director. The policy concerns that are outlined, I guess my question is, are they, this is a rhetorical question, but are they seriously policy concerns versus just unanswered questions about how such a facility would be operated? In other words, there's concerns associated with not knowing the type of security encryption that would be used. The ability for it to remain a closed surveillance system. The response time that from my point of view, many of these concerns are more operational, outstanding questions as opposed to actually being policy. So can you enlighten me a little bit more about that? I mean, would we be able to work with the industry to answer some of these questions that right now are concerns? And which of these concerns are true policy concerns or questions?
Thank you, Commissioner Vice Chair. So this is not something that is currently authorized in the state. So to me, that's the first policy. That's the overarching policy concern.
It's not authorized by this.
Well, we haven't authorized it.
We haven't authorized.
Right. So this is new to the state. So to me, this is a concept that is of a significant change in policy.
Yes.
Then when we go to other states, usually the other question is, well, what are other states doing in this area? We have gone to other states and this is not something that is prevalent in other states. So then does it come back to just an operational issue? Well, certainly we could become a state that just says, submit exceptions to us and therefore we shall grant them. Or to me, there's nothing for us to go fall back to or refer back to in terms of best practices. So it comes back to an overarching policy issue of, is this an area that you are willing to lay new groundwork?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
it's just, do we want to be
the first.
the first? And then I wondered if anybody, if the industry would like to iterate what they perceive the benefits to the state would be if we went in this direction. Madam Chair, is that possible?
Yeah, let me just check with any commissioners real quick to see if they have any other questions or comments that maybe if someone wants to give public comment, they can address everything at once. Commissioner Lawson, did you have anything? Or Commissioner Sizemore?
No, I sort of share Commissioner Patterson's concern with being the first to roll something like this out.
Okay, then we will go to public comment. Anybody?
Should I go up there?
Yes, please, and state your name and who you're with.
I'm Eric Person, the owner of Maverick Gaming.
Microphone and microphone.
I'm sorry, I'm Eric Person, the owner of Maverick Gaming. We submitted this about a year ago. I think Victor's done a good job. Victor Menace done a good job of sort of outlining the pressures that are on card rooms in terms of all the costs that are rising. And I do operate in Nevada and Colorado, and we do have centralized surveillance. And we contemplated buying some casinos in the south, and the satellite routes do have centralized surveillance. So this absolutely happens in other states in this country, including two of the jurisdictions that I operate in currently. One of the main benefits is in gaming, unlike food and beverage, you can't just have people lose more money. You can't just play people blackjack and take 20% more when your cost of labor goes up 20% more. They're gambling, and so you have to find other ways to contain costs, to market, become more successful. And from our perspective, from Maverick's perspective, this was a And we thought it would be non-controversial, frankly, because what it allows us to do is build a centralized surveillance area, give commission direct tie-in. It's no secret that the WSGC is severely underfunded. It's short on agents and administrative staff. We thought that this would be a convenience, not only for the operators, but also for the commissioners in the WSGC. We thought labor is very difficult to find qualified people. And so if we could have one area and we could, perhaps pay more and be able to compete with, we have to compete with Microsoft and Amazon, and everyone understands the compensation package is in this Seattle MSA. It's not easy. And some of these smaller properties, they have to have surveillance 24 hours a day. They have to have an agent on board. And frankly, if we wouldn't have bought them, realize some of the consolidation efficiencies through other areas, those card rooms wouldn't be open either. And it's no secret that I think it's gone from 104 to 38 card rooms. And I think that the commission and everyone has to decide, like, what is do we want card rooms? Because, I just spent 90 million in December because I believe in card rooms. I believe in this business. I believe in this industry. I grew up in this state. Ultimately, I have to pay down my debt. I have to pay my bills. And I can't just charge more for people to come gamble. I have to find things like this that allows us to remain profitable. And I think actually provide a better service because we could have better trained staff. We could have new equipment. We could have remote tie-ins by agents. Instead of having to drive to Pascal or drive to Lakewood and maybe up to Everett, you can do it from a desktop. And encryption and all the technology, it occurs, right? Because banking is happening in the state of Washington on the cloud. Cannabis, other things are moving away in this state from being closed loop systems to the cloud, to secure technology. I believe everything on that list could be addressed and it could be solved through working sessions. We asked for a staff meeting and we're not granted it. And ultimately that's fine. They don't have to, but we pay 100% of the WSGC's bills, 100%. And without us, I don't know who's going to pay it. But card rooms are closing. Like sometimes it gets lost in the mix. You got like 4,000 jobs paying over 75,000 a year. Most of these dealers, I think Victor and the other people, they don't leave. They do their whole career here. And because they're great paying jobs, they're important jobs. When you have an opportunity like this, it's a win, just gets summarily dismissed, super disappointing. Super disappointing because we're trying to do business in the state. I grew up here. I have a house on Bainbridge Island. I'm spending money when everyone's shutting it down. So you want card rooms or not? Kind of like what this sort of stuff comes down to. Make it hard, make it impossible. Keep winning. 100 to 38. Victor says 35, 27. That's the trajectory of card rooms in the state. That's what's really happening. And those jobs are going away. And those people are not employed and they're not making 75,000 a year because we train people who don't have otherwise education quite often. They're not college graduates. They're not working for Microsoft and Boeing, but you know what? They're putting their kids through college. These are important jobs. So I think stuff like this is the toughest state I operate in from a regulatory standpoint to do business. Super frustrating. But you know what? I'll keep coming. I'll keep putting money in. I believe in it. Ultimately, I think that we're going to get to a path that works for everybody. But when stuff like this happens, we don't even get a chance to talk about it. It's ridiculous. That's what I have to say. Unless there's any questions.
Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you. Appreciate your comments. There's no public comment? Julie, no, nothing online. All right, are there any other comments from any commissioners?
I mean, Madam Chair, we have many priorities. We have a tremendous amount of work. We are understaffed. I don't know where the resources would come from to address all of these. And again, I will say to staff, I don't know that they are policy concerns, but I do think that they are operational concerns. I don't know where the you know, what the bandwidth is for addressing this. I don't know how much it would take. How many of these operational concerns could be addressed adequately? And is there anything else that's beyond these operational concerns that we need to be considering here? I don't know. But I thought that was very compelling testimony. It was, I mean, I'm an emotive person, and that was and a piece of emotive testimony that I heard. It's difficult to say no because we don't have the resources to do the work. That's difficult. But if that's the reality, that is the reality. So that's what I'm hearing staff say.
Vice Chair, I'd be happy to meet with them, have a stakeholder meeting, and I look forward to having then regulations brought to us that are very clear from other states exactly about how this is operated. That's what I would be looking for, and to consider this. But it would definitely be something that the commissioners then have to ultimately decide. And hopefully, when staff brings a recommendation forward, is to whether or not this is something that we want in the industry in the state of Washington, then you would take that into consideration as well.
Right, yes, I'm torn on this. Because like I said, I know we have very important work to do. And I don't want this request to pull us away from the trajectory that we are currently on. Would it do that?
We have quite a bit of tasks before us. We are still down about 15 to 20 people. So this is our job.
Thank you. I'm interested to hear what my colleagues think.
Yeah, I think it is kind of tough, for sure. I do think that is an option that we could put forth, is just to have the staff have a meeting and see if there could be any more clarification about some of the stuff. And I do understand that the lack of staff, and I don't want people to be overworked, but I also don't want our licensees to be harmed because of the lack of staff. So it is kind of a whole circular argument that you could make, right? But I personally kind of think another conversation would be helpful that the licensees could have with Director Griffin or whoever else needs to be in on that meeting. I'll let them decide.
So if I may, I think that the world's going to change a bunch in the next 3 to 5 years. Certainly the whole gaming landscape, I expect to change over the next 3 to 5 years. And I just don't know whether it's going to change in Washington, or certainly, expand or grow or, be dramatically different. Like for it to be okay for gaming information to go over the internet. I mean, that seems, I know the rest of the world's, and the rest of industry or different industries are using these technological advances. We're not there in this state, I don't think. And I think that I can appreciate where the interest for this rule comes from. But I don't think that this is an exhaustive list of issues that could come up. I think that there are unintended consequences that we very likely haven't even considered. I'm going to, certainly make a motion to follow staff's recommendation, and with the caveat that, within the next 18 months, staff goes to a couple of these places and looks at those operations, and then come back and look again through our lens and see whether this is something that could be contemplated. I would much rather in 18 to 24 months, have the commission bring up, if in fact it makes sense and we can do this for the industry. I would much rather this come from the commission after the staff has had some time, not on a crunch of rulemaking calendar, just in the course of the next couple of years, going out, doing some research, finding out, and maybe allowing, I mean, Colorado's been at this a couple years, I think, so, and maybe these variances have been around for a little while. I'm not sure exactly how long, but let's see what that experience is and whether there are issues. So that's where I stand.
Commissioner Lawson?
So the concerns that were raised by staff with this petition hit to the central mission of this commission, which is to keep gambling legal and honest. And I think that, again, along the same lines of what Commissioner Sizemore was just saying, we want to keep up with technology, and we want to find ways to make it easier for our licensees to operate. But we need to do so in a way that keeps gambling in Washington State legal and honest. And I think that commission staff just needs more time to evaluate how this is perhaps happening in other states, and how it would work here. And frankly, there's just not the bandwidth at the commission right now for that to happen.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I'd like, if I may, Madam Chair, but I wondered, it sounded like you were articulating kind of a middle ground. Were you?
No?
Okay. So you're going to deny the request, you're going to move to deny the
Sure.
request. But I thought I heard you strongly recommending that staff continue to engage with the industry on this issue.
Yes, I would ask, yes.
And that kind of felt a little bit of a middle ground, but I mean, you weren't just shutting the door on the issue, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in a defined public process of rulemaking.
Right.
And, I feel like the constraints of that and where we are, many of the points that have been made, it just doesn't work. I mean, as I mentioned, I would like for this to be something the commission proposes in 2 years when it's cooked, when it's ready. And that's based on the staff being able to go out, address their policy concerns, and see it working well in other places. And I don't think we can do that in the time frame that this rulemaking would allow.
Okay, that's clear. So you're saying to staff that that's something that you as a commissioner would like to see them do?
Yes, that 20% of the commission, yes.
Yeah. And your time frame was within the next, you said, couple of years.
Yeah, I'm hoping 18 to 24 months staff would have a better handle on this and be able to see maybe some unintended consequences that we haven't seen to this point, and how to tackle them.
Right. So it's too bad that we just have to take a no vote today because of the fact that we don't have the bandwidth, but that is a reality. But I do really like the idea of continuing to engage on this topic, to address these operational issues with industry, to roll up our sleeves with industry to see if they can be addressed. And then, like Commissioner Sizemore said, it would be probably a much more successful request if we went through that process. And we might be able to do something in the state that is unique and that other states follow our lead on. So,
Yeah, if you want to come to the front and introduce yourself again.
I'm Eric Person, the owner of Maverick Gaming. I'd be happy to withdraw if the gaming commission would be willing just to engage us, sort of work through us over the next 18 months, try to work through this stuff together, try to figure this out and avoid a vote if that works for you guys.
Okay.
Are there any issues with that, Suzanne or Director Griffin, from your standpoint?
No, petitioners can certainly withdraw their request for rulemaking at any point in time.
Any questions or comments from commissioners on that?
And I guess I didn't ask the director if she felt like the timeline that I laid out made any sense. So,
Yes.
okay. All right, well then, so
Lisa, do you want to formally, how does he need to do that? Sorry to put you on the spot, sweet.
I don't know that there's any prescribed language.
Okay.
I think an understanding of his intent should be sufficient.
I
Okay.
formally withdraw my request.
There it is.
okay,
Okay,
there we go.
great, thank you. Want to make sure we're doing everything correctly here.
Good job.
Okay. Can we take a 10-minute break maybe, and then we'll come back and hit the last issue?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
10-minute break.